El Paso, welcome to Philosophic Dialogues from La Frontera, where we share the fun of the big questions with you. My name is Dr. Kim Diaz, and I teach philosophy at EPCC.
And my name's Gerald, and I'm a philosopher at the University of Texas at El Paso.
Today, we have the honor of having our guest, Mr. Phillip Romero. Phillip is an experienced multimedia fine artist with a demonstrated history of working in the arts and crafts industry, with a specialty in ceramic art. Phillip served in the U.S. Army with 2 combat tours of Iraq. After being medically discharged, he returned home a disabled veteran and found a rehabilitative passion for working with clay. Currently, he runs and maintains PJ Romero Artworks Ceramic Studio in El Paso, Texas, teaches ceramic classes to people of all ages. Phillip is well recognized in the El Paso community for his art and accepts freelance work. He also offers professional development workshops for the local school districts and is currently taking commissions for his work. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome, a working artist. That's really nice.
It is. It's wonderful being a working artist in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because I don't have to do what everybody else does. I can do whatever I want to do. I can come and go as I please. I really can't. I saw this, there's this funny saying, I got tired of working a 9 to 5, so I opened up my own business. Now I work 24 hours a day.
Right.
But, you know, I'm my own boss.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to talk to all kinds of people, all ages, all professionalities that float around our city. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and you get to practice art.
And I get to practice art. It's a true story. I love to make art from when I was a little kid, and I used to doodle. Now as an adult, and I make bowls and cups and plates, ceramic art, sculpture, and I get to express myself through ceramics and clay. And so when I get to teach people how to do that too.
Why is it important for us to express ourselves?
It is important for us to express ourselves in any media, music, theater, art, clay, because it gives us a way to start a conversation with the world. With art, you know, we learned what is art, but a way to start a conversation. You know, I was taught that if you make art and nobody talks about it, are you really making art? If you make art and you make some people upset, then maybe you're on the right road. Because what we want to do is be able to start a conversation, and whether you're right or wrong, but you get the ball rolling, and we can expand our thinking on what is right or wrong. That is, if you have an open mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're big on dialogue, right? So this whole learning from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, making art to, I think, so I teach aesthetics, and I teach art as well too, philosophy of art. Dabble a little bit, not a professional like you. I like building things. But you said, I was interested in what you said about if you are practicing some kind of art form and you get people upset, then you know you're on the right road.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our first question is, though, if you're practicing art and you make something beautiful, that's not necessarily going to get somebody upset, is it? You could still be on the right road,
but
right?
see, what's beauty?
That's right. So that's our question.
So a quick story for you.
Yeah.
When I first started learning how to make bowls, I love to make bowls. It's my favorite thing to make out of clay.
Yeah.
And my professor said to me one day, well, it's kind of boring. And it hurt me because I'm trying to make a beautiful bowl. And some time later, I ran into another artist, and he goes, I really love your bowl. He was an established potter. Beautiful bowl. These are museum quality. They're so thin, and the form is so. I go, yeah, but they're kind of boring. He goes, who told you that? I said, well, my professor told me that. Mm-hmm. And he said, aren't you a combat veteran? I said, yes, sir. I did 2 tours to Iraq. He goes, well, I would think that you want to look for peace in your life. And I was like, oh yeah. So for me, at the time, I was looking for peace in symmetry to make a beautiful bowl. Mm. But other people like this idea of scratching the surface and deforming and manipulating the form so it creates something different. Where I was looking for simplicity. So that brings up that question, what is beauty, right? And we say what that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You know, for some people, a beautiful blue cobalt bowl is the most beautiful thing they've seen. And some people say, well, I want it to have cuts and bends and folds in it. And that's where I can see the beauty because of the shadow and the light. And it just depends on what you like, right? Your aesthetic.
It makes me wonder the assumption of the person you had this conversation with about, because you're a veteran, you're looking for peace. Because I don't think that holds for everyone. I think that some people cannot, they leave combat, but combat doesn't leave them, you know.
That's the common idea for most veterans, you know. A piece of you stays behind in a combat zone, you know, and some people would say, well, if thinking about the war bothers you so much, then why do you stop thinking about it? Oh, well, shucks, if I knew it was that easy, I would have stopped a long time ago. But those things follow you around. I read one day a story that a veteran wrote, and he says, they ask me, when did you come back? And I say, every morning. You know, I still have nightmares from the things that I saw and the things that I had to do. And I never wanted to do those things, but, you know, you serve your country and you want to take care of your brothers in arms. It just goes into a whole other direction in conversation.
Yeah, we have some, you know, this season we're covering what is beauty, what is art, what are aesthetics. So this is the theme for the year. But we have some questions that keep popping up, but we've not had I don't think we've had a veteran this year, have we?
No, you're our first veteran.
You're our first veteran, maybe for the whole show.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I'm not sure about that. But anyway, for this year, so here's my question.
Okay.
And about these nightmares that keep cropping up, right? So when you're practicing art, when you're on the wheel, when you're making this beautiful bowl, right? Does that keep the nightmares at a distance? Or
Yes.
at bay?
Yes.
I mean, is the very practice of making art a way to bring more peace in your life personally?
Yes, because it is my personal opinion that whether you're on the pottery wheel making a bowl, or at the canvas painting with oil paints or acrylics, or even watercolors drawing, it causes you, making art causes you to be here now. You can't be thinking about this morning and who made you mad when you were driving to work, or what you're gonna have for dinner, or that stupid thing you said 2 weeks ago. You have to be present. I need to be here, knowing how much pressure I'm applying to my chalk as I'm making a chalk sketch, or how much paint am I going to apply, and how is making shadows, whether I'm at the pottery wheel, how much pressure is on my fingertips as I'm creating this wall. I need you to be here now is what I tell my students in my studio. I need you to be here now. What am I doing wrong? I said, well, what are you thinking about? Well, what do you mean? I said, well, you don't understand English? What are you thinking about? You're in your head, get out of there. And they think I'm crazy. And then once we have a conversation, I sit with them and give them this attention, and then they start to understand the feeling in your fingers and the clay, and they go, okay, now I know what you mean. And I often tell folks, I can sit here and tell you bit by bit all these directions on how, all technical aspects of how to make a bowl, but you're not going to understand until you actually sit down and do it, and you become present and stop those noises in your head and those visions of whatever is bothering you.
The bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I studied this a Jewish philosopher named Franz Rosenzweig, but he was also a violin player, and he played every day. I mean, he was this philosopher, thinker, did political philosophy and philosophy of religion and things like that. But he also did art and aesthetics, philosophy of art and aesthetics, because he was an artist. He's a violinist. And so part of his philosophy of art was the real good art, the works of genius, or the art that people pass around and keep around them, get that way because the artist absorbs him or herself in the details of what they're working on. So if you don't get absorbed in those details, like just putting that little bit of pressure with your finger as you're bringing it up the side of your bowl, if you're not absorbed in that detail of what you're doing at that very moment with that particular part of the artwork,
that's right,
then your finger goes through the bowl.
That's right.
If you're not paying attention to the detail.
And I love that you said absorbed, because if I get a sponge and I put it next to the sink, it's not going to do anything. The sponge has to be present in the water to be able to absorb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's lovely.
Why is it important for us to be engaged with beauty, to think about beauty, to be
Well, I guess
that we're doing?
I guess I could say the easy answer is because we live in an ugly world. Beauty gives us peace. And some people sincerely believe that they don't deserve peace and they don't deserve beauty. We need to be surrounded by beauty because it reminds us that we have beauty inside of us. If you look at a flower long enough and you sit with a flower and you are present, then you can see yourself in that flower and understand the growth and the bud and the bloom and even death. And that's such a beautiful thing. But you can find beauty wherever you want. I remember one day I said to myself, I was with my little girl when she was a little girl, and she says, "What are you looking at?" I said, "Something beautiful." And she said, she was 6. She says, "I want to look at beautiful things." I said, "Well, then open your eyes. Everything's beautiful." Once you learn how to surround yourself with beauty, then you can see beauty everywhere, and it causes a chain reaction of wonderful things start to emerge in your life.
So do you think we need to train ourselves to look at the beautiful?
We need to train ourselves to look at beautiful things and understand beautiful things, and then we can learn that we are beautiful things ourselves. Yeah.
Why do you think some of us think that we don't deserve beauty or peace?
Because our society trains us to suffer, sincerely. If you want something, you have to bleed for it. I love listening to motivational speakers, and I was listening to a motivation speech on the way here, and he says, he's practically yelling the speaker, and he goes, if you want something that's worth having, then you have to bleed for it and you have to hurt for it. Of course, you need to strive for the things that you want in your life, but why do you have to?
No pain, no gain.
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's not necessarily true. I'm not saying it's easy, but you don't have to suffer horribly for it. Do you think that a flower suffers to bloom? It's a lot of work, but a flower doesn't suffer to bloom. A beautiful carnation, and it just opens up beautifully. I like to look at time-lapse videos of flowers blooming. Yeah. And so that transfers into art. I remember taking a course at UTEP, a painting class, and I decided to document my painting hour by hour. And when you're there, you don't really see what's happening because you just have this idea in your mind and you're present. And let me stop for a minute, and then you go back. An hour passes, and I worked on that painting for maybe 2 weeks, 3 times a week for 2 weeks, so 6 sessions, and every hour. And later, I went back and I looked at all the growth and layers. Yeah, we don't recognize the layers that happen to us in our lives, and I think if we take a moment to be present in our own lives and reflect on what's happened to us, good and bad, we can see how beautiful our lives are as they unfold. To the people that are by our sides or even on our own, as we reflect on those things.
So this brings up an interesting thought in my mind as well. So you mentioned about the flower opening up, and you love watching these time-lapse videos, right? So do you make a distinction between, or how do you see the relationship between what we find in nature that's beautiful and then the art that you do, that's not
like the artificial as
the
opposed
artificial
to nature.
As opposed to natural beauty. So we create something and we pass it around and say it's beautiful. Like those flowers, we can say they're beautiful, or damn, they're ugly, or
I like them.
I like them too.
And I wanted to say earlier about
but-
pain.
Yeah.
Sometimes it hurts so good.
That's like, can we wait on that question about, so in what way do you make this, do you have this distinction in your mind about how you create something? So as artists, you're a creator, right? You're creating something.
Okay.
And so it's not always the case that you're going to just copy nature.
Correct.
And then that's going to be
there's this idea.
art.
Sometimes
there's things that you come out of your soul that somebody will say that's beautiful, but you don't find that form in nature, maybe.
Well, see, the thing is that we look a lot of nature artists, I guess we can call them, right? Will say, I look to nature for inspiration. But that's not always. I'm not trying to recreate a flower. I'm trying to recreate this piece that I find, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
or
brilliant.
I'm looking for this color of the sky. For myself, I love to make functional wares, functional pottery. But I'm looking for peace. One day I was in Colorado, in Snowmass, Colorado, and it's just down the hill from this beautiful lake, and I had never seen anything so beautiful. The way the mountains almost hit the sky, if you will, and the way that the sky matched the reflection of the water in the lake, and that sense of peace. And I love to make bowls, you have different forms of bowls. But how can you create the peace and beauty of nature in a functional bowl? I'm not expecting people to have a bowl of ramen out of my bowl and like, this reminds me of Colorado. But to be able to hold this bowl and say, wow, this feels smooth, maybe like a river rock. And then that'll take you back to a place that you might be familiar with. How do you make that distinction? Well, I believe that brings you to a place where you have to be familiar with what you're looking at and what you're feeling. So that puts you in another place now where you have to be familiar. Are you really familiar with who you are? Are you really familiar with the things that you like? If you ask some people, what's your favorite number? Right away, 24. Or you can ask some people, what's your favorite color? I never really thought about it. So are you really familiar with who you are? Do you know who you are?
Do you want to ask your question about pain? Because I have another follow-up question.
Talk to me about pain.
Yeah,
I'll
so
remember this one.
sometimes
It
it
has to
hurts
do
so
with
good, right?
Question number 2.
I'd like to eat spicy food.
And
so, do you like to eat spicy food?
I do.
Right? So it hurts and you're like, and you're drinking water, but you can't stop and you keep eating even though it hurts.
Hey.
Or for instance, in yoga, stretching.
The good pain.
It's real tight in there, but it feels good to stretch it, right? So sometimes I feel like I'm gonna bust out into song, right? But it does hurt so good sometimes. And I guess part of it is just the trick of knowing. Earlier we were talking about quality. I think it might have been this morning, we were talking about quality.
On our walk.
And the different quality, there's a different quality of pain and hurt. Lower quality versus a higher quality. And peace. I was reading an article of the peace that is brought about when an autocrat closes the dialogue and says no more dialogue. We're no longer going to be talking about those topics in our schools. And so then there's no conversation. And so nobody feels offended, and there is peace, but at the cost of no more learning. So some conversations are uncomfortable and not peaceful, but if peace is the highest quality, still some of the ways in which we come to that peace, the quality of how we get to that peace is different. I still think that for me also peace is very important. But sometimes discomfort can be good too. I guess all of that to say, it hurts so good. It's, yeah.
Discomfort reminds us that we're alive. You know, you can't live in a utopia and be happy, because you need black and white. You can't have light without making shadows. So we need pain. We need spicy. When I came back from my first deployment, I suffered a lot of mental scarring, if you will. And I was so traumatized that I lost my taste, my ability to taste. And I would go to my favorite Mexican restaurant and just, what is this, tomato sauce? No, sir, it's salsa. Take it away. So I started going to Thai restaurants. On a scale of 1 to 10, how spicy would you like your food? No, let me do a 5. Couldn't taste.
Mm-hmm.
So the peace that I got from enjoying food was gone. I was a chef in the Army. So I would love to cook for people, but I wouldn't even eat my own food because I couldn't even taste.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that peace that I received from eating was gone.
I will be quiet so that you can ask your follow-up question.
Follow-up question.
Yes, please.
Our second question is, what is aesthetics? And aesthetics, as you may know, comes from the Greek word aesthesis, and it means our sensual, bodily engagement with the world. Like, how do we experience the world physically, sensually, right? So aesthesis, aesthetics. So I was just, it was curious the way you said, one of the questions that you raise to your students, I imagine, when they're, saying they don't understand this or that, is, well, how do you understand yourself? And how do you understand your own feeling? And your own feeling about this, or what do you know about yourself? So I think that's part of, it seems to me that just to kind of tie this back into the pain thing, if I'm doing something and it's making me feel good, or I have this pleasure from it, or this pain from it, that's an aesthetic experience.
That's right.
Right? And so I can learn from this in some way, if I'm doing this and what I learned is about my own self, basically, and my own way that I'm engaged in the world or not engaged. I imagine it's easier for you to talk about stuff like that because you have clay and wheels you're dealing with, and not just say words or ideas. This kind of physical, sensual engagement with stuff. So how do you do that? Do you tell your students, make that bowl in a way to connect to something that they're feeling, or how they want to see it, or how they want to taste something out of it, or how does that aesthetic? How do you engage your students or yourself aesthetically? What's the aesthetic engagement like?
Some aspect of it. So I use metaphors, a lot of metaphors. Like I said earlier, right, about the sponge. You should absorb. And so we can sit and have a wonderful intellectual conversation. But working with clay is so primal that we use a lot of little words and simple ideas so that they can grasp those things easier, because clay takes you to a much primal place in your mind when you remember, and everybody says it. I used to make mud pies when I was a little girl, and the way that it felt in my hands, that's what it reminds me of. So I don't really, they do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so that goes back to this whole idea of you are healing yourself. You are making yourself feel better. I don't do anything but sit here and poke at you a little bit, and you come up with those conversations on your own.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to get to something like that, because Kim's insistence on getting at pain and the thing that hurts. But if somebody, if when they, you put a lump of clay in their hands and they're starting to work it and getting muddy, right? Do you ask them questions like, what are you feeling when you're starting to shape it? Or
I was just saying this morning to a student because she asked me a question, so I was showing her how to do something, and somebody says, well, you didn't show me that. I said, well, you were doing something different.
Okay.
There's so much information in ceramics, there's so much information in creating, there's so much information in art that if I were to download everything to you, it would take, well, at least for me, 13 years, because I've been working with clay for 13 years.
Yeah.
So when somebody asks me a question, I answer it. What do you want to make? Well, I want to learn how to make a French butter dish. This is how you do it. I want to learn how to make a beautiful bowl. Well, what do you think beauty is? Smooth, textured. And they're the ones that ask me the questions, and I give them the answers that they're looking for. So I always tell folks when they come into my studio, this is not the kind of studio where I'm going to give you a syllabus. Today we're going to make a bowl. Tomorrow we're going to do this. You come to me with a sense of creativity and you tell me what you want to do. And I want to help you achieve your goals.
That's a different kind of, that's a different sense of beauty, because what you could do is you say, look at these bowls on my shelf.
Yeah.
Now pick out one that you think is beautiful, and then you could copy that one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it that way, but what you're doing is, it seems to me anyway, is that you're trying to help them to generate that kind of creation of beauty out of their own hands or something like that, right? You get that?
Why is that important? Why are you fostering the creativity in your students?
Because they're important, and they need to recognize that they are important. Everybody's first bowl never comes out the way that they want it to.
Well, not anything comes out the way I want it to.
Okay.
No matter what.
But the first bowl they make never comes out the way they want it to. And they're like, it's ugly. I said, no, it's not ugly. It's beautiful. How could you say that? You said it to all your students. Maybe, but how many bowls have you made? Well, this is my first one. For your first bowl, it's amazing. And then we'll have a little chuckle because I think I'm full of it. But for your first bowl, this is amazing.
It looks like a bowl. It holds things inside of it.
It's functional. It's functional,
right?
Yeah. And that's what it boils down to. Is people, whether they want to admit it or not, want to feel useful, because when they feel useful, they feel loved, and when they feel loved, they feel a sense of beauty.
Why is that important to be useful? This is why is it important to be useful? Because we feel loved.
Yes.
And then appreciated.
Appreciated. We want to feel appreciated. And these are things that we don't recognize because do we know? It goes back to, do we know ourselves? It takes us to a primal place when your mom or dad would say, good boy, good girl, great job, thanks. I feel wonderful now.
Can I, I'm not sure if I'm going to change the direction of the dialogue right now, but do you give them, like, your students, so you're a teacher as well, besides just being a master ceramicist, right? Ceramicist?
Sure.
Is that what it is? Do you give them like models of the perfect bowl or something like that?
The platonic form.
The platonic form, right?
Because there is no platonic form. I love to make bowls.
Yeah.
I know this wonderful potter out of San Francisco, and he loves to make cups. And he'll have an exhibition, and the whole wall is filled with cups, and they're all maybe about 6 inches tall, about 3 inches wide, and he decorates and he'll have a whole wall, and that's all he makes are cups. And they'll ask him, what do you like to make? He says, I make cups. And I like that. I adopted that. And so I make bowls. I can make anything you want, but I love to make bowls. And if I were to do a demonstration for you, you would say, wow. Because everybody says wow to me, and I don't know why. But because it's become so easy to me to make a bowl. The bowl, to me, I read one day, is that the bowl is the most democratic form because it's whatever you want it to be. It'll hold whatever you want it to hold. And No, I ask them to come in and they make what they, these human people come in and they make whatever they want to make. But I always remind them. I always do a demonstration. This is how you get in the wheel. This is the steps. Now, let me show you how I make a bowl, because we're gonna learn how to manipulate the form. And then I'll make the bowl, and everybody says, "Wow." And I always remind them, now, don't try and do what I do, because I've been doing this 2 weeks longer than you have. In the grand scope of things, it's just a little bit of time, that's all. It's just more practice. I get to do this every day, so I can make a bowl and make it look really easy. And they want to do that. They want to do what I do, but you have to remember I have a little bit more time doing it, so it takes practice and repetition and love of what you're doing.
So interesting. Everything you're saying is just generating a lot of ideas, like for me.
Yeah, like the politics of bowl making.
Well, it just makes me think of, in the Tao Te Ching, there's a line that says, it's the empty space.
Hey.
It's the empty space that makes it useful. Because we want to fill things up with things. But it's that emptiness, that silence, that it can be anything.
That's right.
The potential, right? And then there's other line from a song from Leonard Cohen, where he says that my heart was the shape of a begging bowl, which is the bowls that monks use to eat. Well, the singing bowls are fashioned after the begging bowls these days. So I teach ethics, and there is this philosopher that, whether I agree or disagree, he makes some points, and one of them is you want to do the right thing at the right time. Aristotle, you want to do the right thing at the right time, in the right way, for the right reasons. For instance, giving, we can giving, right? It seems like it's a good thing, right? Except sometimes the intention of giving something is so that I have something on you, and so then you feel indebted, and now you feel like you owe me one. Kind of like that, So my giving is not the purest. Like Khalil Gibran says, like the flowers give of their essence to anyone, right? They're not saying, I'm gonna smell good for Philip but not for Kim, because they just give their essence, their flower smell. And so in this utility of feeling good, why is it important for us to feel good, right? So is it so that I have a sense of I'm paying my rent here on earth, I am like doing okay. So even this giving and feeling useful to others, with some self-understanding, there's different qualities in being useful.
Yeah.
Ideally, I would think that it's good to be useful, but it would be better if you think I'm useful, great, but if not, that's okay. I'm still gonna be of service, because...
See, that's a love language, right? Acts of service. But giving, one of my favorite quotes is, if you're giving somebody something and you expect something in return, then you're not giving. That's a business transaction.
Yeah.
But I guess that's how it is everywhere. Even a flower. The purpose of a flower scent is to attract a bee to pollinate. It's not for nothing.
You think the sun shines for a reason?
Does the sun shine for a reason? Well, scientifically, sure. Philosophically?
I don't know.
Let me
Let's have that.
here.
I know you're itching.
These questions are too big. The reason for the universe being here and the sun and the solar system. But
Okay.
I want to go back to this quality issue and then the functional stuff. So the way the conversation came up today was, can we replace the quality question? That's what I asked him, and I said, can we ask instead, what's it like being an artist and having to make a living from your art?
Or being able.
Do you sacrifice the quality Yeah, being able to make a living. Do you have to sacrifice the quality to produce quantity?
I won't do that.
Produce like
No,
50
no.
bowls.
I'm
'cause
not
you're gonna get $10 for each bowl. And,
Well,
there's the economic function, right?
okay, so
In art.
that's like 4 different conversations.
I know.
For myself.
It's a big conversation, but
For
it's
myself.
an important one because artists have to pay their bills too,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So the way that I make money is by teaching.
Uh-huh.
Now, when it comes to my art, I won't bend. Either you like my stuff or you don't like my stuff. I was given several years ago. I was given an opportunity to sell at a museum, and they said, "But we want you to make this." Then you don't want my work. Then just go to Target and pick up some bowls.
Right.
And then another local gallery owner, I want to give you the opportunity to exhibit at my gallery. Great, but I want you to make this. Well, then you're not asking for my work. I don't mind making quantity. I just finished making a 60 little cups, 3 inches by 3 inches, and all they said is it has to have this design, and I want you to put the year in the bottom. Okay, I can do that for you. And each little cup, because they had to have a little belly, so it had this little shape. But I love the fact that every little cup had its own little spirit, because they weren't exactly the same.
Right.
Some might have been a little taller, a little shorter, a little wider, a little thinner. So if you look back, they all look the same, but when you pick them up, you can see where they're all a little bit different, and that's what I love about being able to do that. When I make my bowls, I've been making bowls back to bowls. I've been making bowls for so long that they all have pretty much the same shape, and I can make you a set of nesting bowls relatively easy because I know my hand and my shape. But I try not to compromise my quality for quantity because I'm trying to make functional art. I hate the word utilitarian. It bugs me so much. Oh, you're a utilitarian artist. Ugh.
Why? Why does
Because
it
it
bother
just
you?
sounds so, the way it sounds to me, just like nails on a chalkboard. But you can say functional art. I don't mind that so much. And I love to make functional art. Why can't a bowl be a beautiful piece of art that you use every day?
Right.
Yeah. So now I've make art, and you can have your soup out of, and then wash it and put it away, and people can admire it.
But this is an idea I was getting to. Maybe we can push this a little bit more because, I mean, there is this decision that each of us has to make. Do I go and buy my bowls at Walmart? And they're all the same. They're made by a machine. They're stamped out. They look the same. And each bowl costs $2, $4, whatever. Or do I buy bowls from Phillip Romero and they're going to cost $10 a piece, but each one has his signature on the bottom, and each one looks a little bit different, and its own spirit, right? So that's the question,
Okay, so the answer to that question is this. Some people don't care, and they use paper plates, and God bless them.
Right.
And some people like to have daily plates and special plates, and they have a special cabinet, right? We call it a china cabinet.
Yeah.
And they put their special bowls in there for special occasions. And some people like to have handmade bowls because they can feel it. They can feel the difference in the way the bowl feels and the shape. And some people are so picky. I don't want my bowl to be like this. I want it to come in just a little bit. And I couldn't find it at Walmart, and you have it, and I want it. Okay, great. You know what? Wants, needs, and desires, right? So.
Why is
the needs and desires, it's a pretty interesting combination,
Yeah.
because we all need a bowl to eat out of, right? Something like that. But if it doesn't match my desire or my body and how it feels in my hand, right? I want a cup that feels good in my hand, and maybe this cup, has this memory of me going into your shop and buying it, or
which takes us back to beauty, because I bought this cup because I like the way it feels. It has rough edges, and it reminds me of how beautiful life was when I went rock climbing in Colorado. And it has the same. So then we go back to nature inspiring the things that we make, and the beauty. This guy might want. He's happy with, the young bachelors are happy with red Solo cups in their cabinets. But when we can afford it, we like to have this beautiful. I have to have this cup because it reminds me of X, Y, Z.
That's not the way. Go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
you deal with the ugly too, right? You're saying you can't have the white. If you shine, there's going to be shadows against.
Always.
So how do you deal with the shadows? How do you incorporate the shadows, the distasteful parts of the bitterness into the soup? What's your recipe for?
Now, what? There's a lot of bitterness. So tell me the bitterness you're speaking of.
Any type of bitterness, right? The shadows, the distasteful, the salty, the darkness for to make art, because you can cut yourself with clay. Can you cut yourself with clay while working with ceramics?
Not when it's wet, but after it's been fired, if there's a sharp edge, yeah, it can cut you. And I've cut myself several times unloading the kiln because.
Or you burn yourself.
Or you burn yourself, true.
And so there is no way to just. The rose comes with thorns,
That's
right?
And but we learn that when we're picking roses, well, don't touch the thorn.
But it happens every so often.
Every time I grab that rose, the thorns prick me.
Right.
Well, then don't do that.
But we want beauty, and so you're gonna burn yourself occasionally.
But we learn
cut yourself.
With that rose, we learn not to grab it like this, but with our fingertips maybe. With the kilns are super hot; they get to 2,000 degrees. Well, don't open it when it's 400 degrees. Wait, you gotta wait. You have to practice patience.
Okay.
And let the kiln cool.
Is there a recipe for incorporating the shadows into our art?
Yes. I need you to be here now. I need you to be present. If I run into my studio first thing in the morning, open the kiln, and it's 400 degrees, I'm gonna burn myself. But if I'm present, it's 400 degrees. Let me go make a cup of coffee instead and wait for that kiln to cool.
So some patience.
Patience, sure. Picking the pieces up. I can see that it's smooth. I'm not gonna grab it from the bottom because I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it has a sharp edge. So I need to be mindful of that and understand from learning. Because the first 5 times I grabbed that rose like that and I kept pricking myself. Well, then don't do that. And so in the beginning, the first several times I'd pick up the bowls from the bottom and I'd cut my fingertips, because when we paint the bowls, we're using glaze, which is liquid glass. And then, if it sticks to the shelf, it breaks and has a sharp edge, and I kept cutting myself. Well, then don't do that. Practice some patience, pick it up gently, only from the top. And, we learn how to maneuver around possible shadows. Yes. Whenever I walk into my friend's room, he's always mad. Well, why don't you knock first? Practice mindfulness. Be present and understand that, okay, the first time you're going to make a mistake, but after the 4th or 5th time, and let me learn how to maneuver around the darkness,
But yeah, maneuver, but we cannot avoid it.
No, we can't.
Sometimes we're the source of the sharp edges.
Sometimes we are the source. But that still goes back around. Do you know yourself well enough to adjust your ailment around that part of you that is hurting yourself?
Why do you think some of us don't know ourselves well enough? What's stopping us?
Because we're uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. We don't want to admit that. I know my mom loved me, but why did she have to hit me? I know my dad loved me, but why did he yell at me all the time? And we don't want to admit certain things about certain situations. So instead of doing the work, we just put it away.
We don't engage. We don't pick up the rose.
We don't pick up the rose to learn. Or if I pick up the rose, I see the thorns, but if I grab it, I'm going to hurt myself. So I just won't even do it. And we keep walking, And now what happens? We don't smell the roses. Stop and smell the roses. And we have a tendency to avoid uncomfortable situations. But sometimes wonderful things come from uncomfortable situations. Because we avoid uncomfortable situations, we avoid pain. But pain reminds you that you're alive. And so I remember when I was very young, I wanted to be impressive, and so I would use these big words. And I didn't always know what they meant. And I was really good at shooting from the hip. And then one day, I missed completely and I embarrassed myself. I used the wrong word. It sounded like an idiot. And I remember that day, I told myself, if somebody asks me, I'm just going to say, I don't know. But let me find out. So we faced this shadow. We did the work. We were embarrassed, but that motivated me to learn more and become a better, well-rounded, educated person, and not to say photosynthesis a lot.
So you've been teaching, how long have you been teaching again? How long have you had your studio and people come to learn from you? How long again?
2.5 years now.
2.5 years, so that's enough time to get a sense for what kind of students come to you. So how would you characterize the kinds of students that come to you to learn this particular art?
I have all kinds. I have all ages. I think right now my youngest is 9 and my oldest is 86. And I have students and professionals that come into the studio.
Yeah.
And I have healthcare workers and educators, and I have moms that homeschool, and I have all kinds of people that come in the studio. But what kind? Seeking spirits.
I guess that's what my question was, and is there a sense that you get from, or have you developed a sense for connecting to that kind of a seeking? Like this person is seeking just to learn how to be confident, or this person is seeking to learn how to,
so
express themselves.
I understand, yeah. So at the risk of sounding mystical, it is my personal opinion that the people that come into my studio are the ones that need to find me and the things that I offer in that studio. I've had people that come in and say, well, we just want to take a class to try it. Okay. And they'll come and take a class and then they don't come back. And that's fine. And I have some people that come in and they're like, I really like your space and the things that we can't really quantify, right? I like the way it feels in here.
Yeah.
I like the vibe. I like the energy. Well, what is that? I don't know. I like the way it feels. Well, can you tell me how it feels? I just feel comfortable. I like it.
That was a wonderful response, by the way.
So
yeah, because students seek teachers.
Yes.
And art is that if you go to an artist,
that's a tricky question because you might be an outstanding artist, but that doesn't make you a good teacher.
Right. Right. No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean that's really there's that the combination of being an artist and a teacher is really something else.
Or a professional and a teacher. You may be great at your whatever you do, but that doesn't mean you can convey it. And
I just had somebody yesterday that gave me this wonderful compliment. She goes, I was taking a class at this other place for an extended amount of time, and I couldn't make anything. And then the one day that I took your class, I already made 3 bowls. And I said,
Well, there is this double function, and you seem to have put your finger on it pretty well, Phillip. And in order to teach art or to teach writing, teach almost anything, you have to teach the basics. How to throw the mud on the wheel. How to get your hands in there, where to position them, and all that kind of stuff. But then the next part of it is, well, why are you putting your hands on the wheel, and what is it you want to express? What is the original particularity that you have to, why are you coming to do this, right? That kind of thing. So I think that there's...
It always starts with, well, I've always wanted to try this. And 2 years later, I have several students that just keep coming back.
Yeah.
You know, and they get better at pottery. They do get better. But they stay for the chisme, the conversation, the vibe, the energy.
Right.
And they all have a wonderful time in there. And it's not all just me, mind you. I feel blessed because I've had people tell me, thank you for making this wonderful space here.
Yeah.
But it wasn't me. I just pay the rent. It's the collective that comes together. I mean, okay, maybe they came because of me, but they stayed because of the community. And the community is what created the community.
Yeah.
I never said, you do this and you do that, and they all came together and learned pottery, and I do my best to help people. And they created their own community, and it's something I'm really proud of, to stand back and say, you guys are awesome. Because all those people talk to one another, share beauty. Believe it or not, they share their pains.
Right.
And they learn from one another. And then they go out and spread love in the world.
Yeah.
But you're facilitating that space.
Well, I pay the rent, yeah.
No, you do more than pay the rent, right? You could be the type of teacher that says, this is the form that you need to replicate, and it's supposed to look like this. And that's not your style.
Not at all.
So I have two more questions that I'm going to try to fit in. What makes a good teacher, and what makes a beautiful teacher, right? What makes a beautiful teacher? Because
a teacher who can teach beauty?
Well, no, because one of our questions is what's good, beautiful? We don't know that, we'll get to it. But what makes, assuming it's beauty and good the same, what makes a good teacher? One, and is peace beautiful? Answer however you want, whichever you want first.
Tell me the first one again.
Yeah, what makes a good teacher?
What makes a good teacher? Mm-hmm. Listening to your students and their wants and their needs. You know, I could be trying to teach pottery, but if my student wants to make sculpture,
yeah,
then I'm going to teach them how to make sculpture. You know, I recently started teaching at a little preschool, and I have 12 4- and 5-year-old little children, and they're wonderful. And I said, okay, boys and girls, this is what we're going to do, and I'm showing them how to do it. And then one little boy got his clay and he smeared it. And he starts to, and he made a little plate. And I had an assistant teacher in there, and she says, what am I supposed to do with this? I said, well, put his name on it. He made it. Let him make whatever he's making. He's expressing himself. He's not doing what everybody else does. He's going to be the artist. Mm-hmm. And so we try to foster the ability to create. So what makes a good art teacher? An individual that will foster your ability to want to create. Mm-hmm. You know what? If the assignment is to make a cup, but you want to make a bowl, well, then make a bowl. But let me show you how to make a good bowl. Let me show you some techniques. Do you want to express beauty through smooth texture, curvature? And let's have a conversation about it. And the ability to want to help the student grow and understand what they're doing. That's what's going to make a good teacher.
Okay.
That ability to bend a little bit so they can make what they want to make, but also help them grow out of that also.
Is peace beautiful?
Is peace beautiful? It's beautiful to be in peace, but I think that if you stay in peace for too long, you're going to end up in pieces. Utopia is not a really good thing. It's boring. And then when we get bored, we get frustrated. We get frustrated, we get angry. But how can you be angry if you're in peace? I want something to happen. What do you want to happen? I don't know, but I'm bored. During the pandemic, everybody that wanted to stay home got to stay home. And after about 2 weeks, they were tired of it.
I wasn't.
And you got cabin fever. And all of a sudden, all of El Paso was hiking. Mm-hmm. What happened? I thought you wanted to stay home and watch TV. Mm-hmm. You were at peace, weren't you? Yes, but I want to go and do stuff. So it's about balance. Mm-hmm. Is peace beautiful? Peace can be beautiful, but utopia it's not sustainable. It's not finding happiness and peace in utopia is not. Why are the lights always on? Mm-hmm. Turn the lights off so I can be in darkness for a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's healthy. It's
Okay.
healthy.
So I can go within myself and figure out what do I really want to create. You know, what do I
Exactly.
want to create with my life?
That's right.
Right. Yeah. Well, great. We've had a wonderful time today.
Oh, thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you for coming and talking.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
having me today.
so
It's so wonderful.
much.
Thank you
Yeah.
so very much.
I'm going to have to come find your studio now.
You're gonna have to.
Me too.
I'll be waiting for both of you.
Yeah.
This has been Philosophic Dialogues from La Frontera with our guest, Master Ceramicist, Phillip Romero, Kim Diaz.
Jules Simon.
Thank you to our crew. Please join us next time.